Once upon a time, in a quiet village, surrounded by tall hills and green fields, lived a kind girl named Ella. She was 16 years old. Ella lived with her stepmother and two stepsisters in a small house made of stone. Her real parents had passed away when she was very young. Ella's life was not easy. Her stepmother made her cook, clean, and do all the hard work in the house. Her stepsisters, Clara and Lila, wore beautiful dresses and did nothing all day. They laughed at Ella's old clothes and dirty hands. But Ella never complained. She had a kind heart. She loved the birds, the flowers, and the stars. She dreamed of a better life. At night, she would sit near the window and look at the moon. One day, she whispered, "My life will change." In the village, everyone knew Ella as the girl with no shoes. She had only one shoe, an old slipper that used to belong to her mother. She wore it every day. Her other foot was always bare. People asked, "Why do you wear only one shoe, Ella?" But Ella just smiled and said, "Because I still believe in magic." One morning, a message arrived in the village. A grand party was going to be held at the castle. The prince, who had just returned from a long journey, was looking for someone special to marry. Every young girl in the land was invited. Ella's stepsisters were very excited. They danced around the room and said, "We will wear our best dresses. We will meet the prince." The stepmother smiled and said, "Yes, my daughters, this is our chance." Ella quietly asked, "May I go too?" But her stepmother laughed. "You go to the castle. Look at your dress. Look at your dirty hands. You have only one shoe." Her stepsisters laughed loudly. Ella felt sad, but she still helped them prepare. She washed their dresses, polished their shoes, and brushed their hair. She watched as the carriage took them away, leaving her behind. She stood by the gate and whispered, "Maybe one day." Suddenly, a soft light filled the garden. A woman with silver hair and a long robe appeared. She smiled at Ella and said, "My dear child, why are you crying?" Ella looked up in surprise. "Who are you?" she asked. "I am here to help you," the woman said gently. "Your heart is kind and your soul is full of hope. Tonight you shall go to the castle." Ella's eyes grew wide. The woman raised her hand. In a moment, Ella's old dress turned into a gown made of soft silver and gold. On her feet were two beautiful glass slippers. Ella couldn't believe her eyes. "Go, dear child," the woman said. "But remember, this magic will only last until midnight. After that, everything will return to how it was." Ella thanked the woman and hurried to the castle. She had never seen such beauty. Lights sparkled, music played, and people danced in joy. But everyone stopped when Ella entered the room. "Who is she?" people whispered. "She looks like a princess." The prince saw Ella and smiled. He walked to her and said, "May I have this dance?" Ella nodded, and they danced under the stars. She felt like she was in a dream. As the music played softly in the background, Ella and the prince danced slowly across the marble floor. The other guests watched them with wide eyes. Who the beautiful girl was, she moved with grace. Her eyes sparkled, her smile was gentle. The prince asked, "What is your name?" Ella paused. She wanted to tell him, but she remembered the silver-haired woman's words. "The magic will end at midnight." She smiled and said, "Just call me Ella." The prince smiled too. Ella ... That's a beautiful name. They walked through the garden together. The stars were bright. The air was cool. The prince said, "I have met many girls, but you are different. You are quiet but strong, simple but full of light." Ella looked down. Her heart beat fast. She thought, "This feels like a dream, but I don't want it to end." The prince asked, "Will you stay with me after the party?" Ella could answer. The clock began to ring. Dong, dong. It was midnight. Ella gasped. "I must go," she said. She turned and ran down the castle steps. The prince called, "Wait, Ella, don't leave." But she did not stop. As she ran, one of her glass slippers slipped off her foot. She looked back, but she did not have time. She ran into the darkness and disappeared. The prince picked up the slipper and held it close. "I will find you," he whispered, "no matter what." Ella ran through the night. Her dress turned back into her old clothes. The other slipper was gone. The silver-haired woman was nowhere to be seen. Ella walked home in silence. Her heart was full of both joy and sadness. The next morning, the stepmother and stepsisters returned from the castle. They were tired and upset. "The prince danced with some strange girl all night," said Clara. "He didn't even look at us," said Leela. Ella stayed quiet. She touched her empty foot and smiled. She knew it was real. She had danced with the prince. Even if it was just for one night, it was the most beautiful night of her life. But the story was not over. In the following days, royal messengers visited every house in the land. The glass slipper and said, "The prince is looking for the girl who wore this shoe. She will become his queen." The stepmother heard this and grew afraid. She told her daughters, "You must try to wear the shoe. One of you must marry the prince." Clara and Leela smiled. "We will make it fit," they said. When the messengers arrived at Ella's house, the sisters pushed her away. "She is just the maid," said the stepmother. "Let my daughters try the shoe." Clara tried first. Her foot was too big. She pushed and pulled, but it did not fit. Leela tried next. Her foot was too small. She cried out in pain, but the shoe would not go on. Just then, Ella stepped forward. "May I try?" she asked. The stepmother shouted, "No." But the messenger said, "Every girl in the land must try." Ella sat down quietly. She slipped her foot into the shoe. It fit perfectly. Everyone in the room gasped. Clara and Leela stared in shock. The stepmother turned pale. Then Ella reached into her pocket. She pulled out the other glass slipper. "I believe this belongs with the other," she said softly. The messengers bowed. "She is the one," they said. "We have found the prince's bride." Ella smiled. She had never felt so happy. But as she turned to leave with the messengers, she looked back at her stepmother and stepsisters. Her heart was still kind. "I forgive you," she said. "I hope you find your own happiness someday." Then she walked out of the house and into a new life. Ella sat in a golden carriage as it rolled toward the royal palace. She looked out the window at the town she once knew so well. People on the streets waved and smiled. "There she is," they shouted. "The girl with the glass slipper." Ella couldn't believe it was real. Just days ago, she was sweeping floors and wearing rags. Now, she was dressed in a fine silk gown, with soft shoes and shiny hair. But more than anything, she was proud of her heart. She had stayed kind and brave, even when life was hard. When she arrived at the palace, the prince was waiting for her on the steps. He smiled when he saw her. "I knew you were the one," he said. Ella felt her heart beat faster. "And I knew I would find you again," she replied. They walked through the palace gardens, just like they did the night of the ball. But now, everything was different. There was no more magic, no more fear of midnight. This time, it was real. The king and queen welcomed Ella warmly. They had heard about her kindness and strength. "She is not just beautiful," the queen said. "She is wise and gentle. She will make a wonderful princess." The wedding was held in the grand ballroom. People from all over the kingdom came to see the prince and his bride. Ella wore a dress of soft silver and a crown made of tiny stars. As she walked down the aisle, she smiled at everyone, yes, even her stepmother and stepsisters who sat in the back. The stepmother looked down in shame. She remembered the things she had said and done. Clara and Leela looked surprised. Never thought Ela would become a princess. But now, here she was, strong, graceful, and full of light. After the ceremony, the prince and Ella stood on the palace balcony. The crowd cheered below. The prince took Ella's hand. From the moment I saw you, I knew you were different, he said. And I will love you every day of my life. Ella smiled. And I will never forget who I am or where I came from, she said. Even a girl with just one shoe can change her world. The palace became her new home. But Ella didn't spend her days sitting on a throne. No, she walked through the town often. She helped the poor, gave food to children, and listened to the people's stories. She started a school for young girls, where they could learn to read and write. Every girl should have the chance to dream, she said. Not just the rich ones. She also invited her stepmother and stepsisters to visit the palace. At first, they were too ashamed, but one day they came. Ella greeted them with a warm smile. You are welcome here, she said. The past is behind us. New, Clara and Lila were touched. No one had ever shown them such kindness before. Over time, they changed. They learned to be better, softer, and more grateful. Even the stepmother, who had once been cold, began to show warmth. The palace was filled with music, laughter, and learning. People said, "She is the people's princess." And they were right. Ella never wore glass slippers again. She didn't need magic shoes to prove her worth. She walked with confidence in strong, simple shoes, just like the girl she had always been. Years passed, and Ella became more than just a princess. She became a queen who ruled not with power, but with kindness. People loved her because she listened to them, helped them, and walked among them. Everywhere she went, people remembered her story. Q-Row would whisper, "That's the girl who wore only one shoe." But to them, she was more than a fairy tale. She was proof that even someone small, quiet, and forgotten could become something great. Ella and the prince now, the king ruled together in harmony. They made changes that helped everyone, not just the rich. They gave work to people who needed it. They believed in fairness, not fame. And they were happy, not because they had gold or crowns, but because they had each other. Their love was strong, built on trust and respect. Every day, they took time to walk in the garden, laugh over tea, and talk like best friends. They had children, 2 boys and a girl. Ella told them bedtime stories, not just about kings and castles, but about small cottages and big dreams. She told them kindness is more powerful than magic. One day, her daughter asked, "Mama, is it true you wore only one shoe to the ball?" Ella smiled and nodded. "Yes, it is true." "Why only one?" the little girl asked. "Because I left the other one behind," Ella said gently. But sometimes leaving something behind is how we move forward. But it was my courage that took me the rest of the way. As the children grew, they too learned to be kind, to speak gently, and to stand tall, even when it was hard. Ella taught them to look for people who were lonely, sad, or in need. Everyone has a story, she said. Sometimes all they need is someone to listen. One winter evening, Ella stood by the palace window, looking out at the snow falling gently over the village. She thought about the little house where she had grown up, about the fireplace, the mice, and the garden full of flowers. She remembered the chores, the old shoes, and the tears. But she also remembered the joy of small things, a quiet book, a kind word, a single night of magic that changed everything. And she smiled, because now she understood. The story wasn't about the prince, or the ball, or the glass slipper. It was about never giving up. It was about staying kind, even when no one saw you. It was about hope. As Queen Ella grew older, she became a legend. Not because of the crown on her head, but because of the heart in her chest. People told her story to their children and their children's children. And somewhere in a quiet corner of the palace, behind glass, sat a single glass slipper. It was small, delicate, and shining, but it wasn't locked away like a treasure. No, above, it was a small sign that read, "It's not the shoe that made her special. It was the girl who wore it." And so Ella's story lived on. A girl who had nothing but gave everything. A girl who wore only one shoe and changed the world. The end. Asterisk. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you in the next video.